I have a lot of hobbies, and one of them is cooking. I do a lot of cooking in my house. One of the things that I love to make is pizza. But what I don't have is a good pizza roller. So I've got this blank glued up, and we're gonna see if I can turn a French rolling pin out of this. Let's get over to the lathe and see how this goes. Okay, we're over here at the lathe. I've got this thing chucked up just between centers, and let's address the elephant in the room right off the bat, because I know the first thing that people are gonna say is, did you get a new lathe? No, the answer is I did not. This lathe has actually been in my shop for about 3 years now, and I have yet to use it because I had some problems with the tailstock that I needed to sort out. This is a rather old Grizzly G1495 that I got for free from a friend of mine. They were going to toss it. The problem with it was the tailstock quill would not advance. It was screwing the adjuster out the backside instead of advancing the quill. So I had to take this all apart and fix that. And I think I've got it working now. We're going to find out with this being the first thing that I've ever turned on this lathe. Like I said, it's been sitting in my shop for 3 years, so we're going to give it a run today. Now, the things that I don't like about it. It is extremely loud. It's a very noisy lathe. It's also Reeves driven, so the speed adjustment on it is kind of rudimentary at best. Not the greatest lathe ever, but it was free and it does work, so we're gonna see if I can actually start using it to make things with. It is much bigger than my little jet. Now, this blank did not glue up exactly how I wanted it to. As you can see, this piece slid quite a bit. It's over to one side, which means this thing's gonna end up much smaller diameter than I had originally intended, but you know what? I think that's okay. First thing I'm gonna do is just get this thing rounded off and get it trued up and see where we are. So let's get to that. I'm gonna grab my face mask and a roughing gouge, and we're gonna start turning this thing around. So let's get to it. Okay, I've got this thing basically rounded off and flattened out and trued up. I've drawn a line as close to center as I can get. You will notice that I need to go a little bit farther because we're not quite down right there yet, but we'll get there. It did turn out much narrower than I wanted it to be. We're down to about 1.25 inches diameter, and I wanted to be more like 1.5 inches, 1.75 inches maybe even. So next thing I'm gonna do, I've got this line drawn at center. I'm gonna take this ruler and I'm gonna mark out a line at 8 inches from each side. We'll put a mark there. And we'll put a mark there. We're going to spin this up and draw that line. Draw that line. And then I'm going to take my bidan and I'm going to part both of these off so that I know where my limits are for the length of this thing. So let's do that next. Okay, I'm pretty happy with the shape of this. I got a little bit of final sanding to do on it. I'm going to break out some 80 grit and take care of that final shaping on it just to kind of smooth it out and get it flat, but I'm really happy with the shape of this. So we're gonna start out with 80 grit. We're gonna work our way up through 120, 240, 320, 400 to get this thing sanded nice and flat and get it trued up and nice and smooth. So we'll start with some 80 grit and then we'll work up all the way through the grits to 400. Now, I'm going to pop the grain with denatured alcohol just to raise the grain, and then I'll run over it one more time with the 400 grit, and then I'm going to finish this with Odie's oil. And the reason I'm choosing Odie's oil for the finish on this one is because normally I would not finish a rolling pin. I don't like finishing rolling pins because it's going to come in contact with a lot of food, and I don't want to use like a cutting board oil on it because most of those oils over time will go rancid if you don't get all of the excess oil off of them. The Odie's oil will form into a hard wax finish and it will bond with the wood. So I can be assured that the Odie's oil is going to be food safe for good. So I'm going to pop the grain with the denatured alcohol, run a 400 grit over it one more time just to knock down the fuzzies, and then we'll finish it with Odie's oil. And yeah, that looks really cool. Now I'm going to rub this on here just the way you see me doing it here, and then I'm going to spin up the lathe and get this nice and hot, and it'll kind of melt into the wood. Like I said, it will work as a hard wax finish and it's always food safe. So I really like Odie's oil for all of my cutting board project and anything that I know is going to come in contact with food at any point. And there we go. That looks beautiful. Now, all we got to do is part these ends off, and I'm only going to part them part way, and then I'll cut them with my pole saw again. And then we'll just take those ends over to the belt sander or a disc sander, either one, whichever you have, and we'll sand off those ends. Then I'll put some Odie's oil on those, and this will be done. But I think it's looking great. And there we go. And then we'll take it over to the disc sander, sand up these ends, get some finish on them, and I'll see you back at the workbench. And there you have it. Does it work? Yeah, I'm gonna say it does. And by the way, quite tasty too. Yeah, I gotta tell you, This thing works great. It looks beautiful. I could not be more happy with the way this turned out. So, I hate to steal somebody else's catchphrase, but in the words of Eric Curtis, go make a thing. And make something you enjoy making. And if that thing helps you make something else you enjoy making, that's all the better. We'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks a lot.